Hello, everyone. We're here to talk about the SQL Server 2012 curriculum. Sitting next to me here is Pete Harris, our courseware planner, esteemed colleague extraordinaire. And so, Pete, what do you got going for us today?
So we wanted to do this session to talk about the goals that we had for the SQL Server 2012 portfolio. We wanted to talk a little bit about the design process that we used, how we came up with the content that we built. And we'll talk about the exams and the courseware that we built to support the new SQL Server product.
Great. Sounds good. Let's get started.
So first, though, I think we'll take a quick look back at SQL Server 2008 just to kind of reflect on where we've been. The two big courses for SQL Server 2008 were the 6231 and 32 courses. We shipped B versions of those courses in early 2011. We've done exam refreshes to make sure that the content for the corresponding exams reflects some of the new things that came out in SQL Server 2008 R2. We actually aren't making any changes to the courseware for the BI side of 2008. That's a common question that we get. But the neat thing about the SQL Server 2008 portfolio is during that B version refresh of 6231 and 32B, we actually made a really significant bump in NSAT. The table here at the bottom of the slide shows that we've bumped up to 165 for trainer satisfaction for 6231 and 168 for 6232. We knew that there were problems with the quality of the A versions, and we solved that at the beginning of the last calendar year. The other thing that's really cool about it is it was really neat to look at the data to see that the trainers were really covering for the quality of the courseware in those A versions. The student NSAT didn't show a dramatic increase because it was already pretty high in the A versions. So we're pretty solid on the 2008 content, but we're looking forward to getting everybody kicked off in the SQL Server 2012 portfolio now.
So it sounds like made an investment, improved the quality. The trainers have been covering for us to a certain degree there in terms of our quality, but we definitely have got a lot better course, and we've extended the life too because these are now R2.
That's right. That's right. So for SQL Server 2012, we looked at the goals for what we wanted to build kind of in three buckets. The first one is sort of the MSL business goals. We had some really clear things we wanted to do, specifically around making sure that each course shipped as one volume to keep costs low. We had a strategic goal around offering commercial beta versions of the courseware for the first time, and that's really exciting. We had time to market goals. We knew that partners really wanted the content as early as they could get. That dovetails into the beta mock, but we also had some pretty strict time to market goals with respect to shipping the release version of the course. And then for the first time ever, in the portfolio, we've actually done a lot of work to make sure that the courseware and the exams map really tightly together, and we'll talk through that when we get into the design. But kind of at a high level, those were sort of the MSL business goals.
So that sounds great. So I don't have to carry as heavy books around because I got a single book. But we're doing a good job on the quality. We're getting the product out into the learning partners, the MCT's hands early, and then they're ready to go as soon as we go to RTM.
Yep.
That sounds great, Pete.
Yep. And then for learning partners, we share those goals. The point I wanted to make here is that these are specific things that we heard from partners that we wanted to take into account when we built the portfolio. Again, get the content early, offer it so that they can deliver it on beta versions of the product, and really deliver a portfolio that comprehensively helps people prepare for certification. And then the last thing is our certification team's been working really hard on the integrity of the certifications, and there's been a variety of discussion about this on Born to Learn with respect to new item types and difficulty of questions and monitoring the exam performance over time and things like that. And we wanted to be really respectful of the work that they've done to keep the quality of the certification program really high.
So we've done a lot for the whole round picture, shall we say, from the partners to the customers, the cert customers. And it's not just the SQL team saying, get the stuff out early. We've got partners, learning partners ready to execute on this.
That's right.
And really know what our customers want to help support the cert. So we went in there strong. Sounds good.
Yep.
So this is a little bit on where we went with that search story. So that's kind of the bow at the end of the whole process, right? So it's got to be a meaningful one. The present can't come unwrapped, shall we say, right?
It is, and I'd also add, with respect to having a really solid story at the end, we started the process making sure that the objective domains that we built both the exams and the courses to map to was extremely relevant and real world as best as we could make it.
So Pete, what is our philosophy? I like that. I didn't know we had one.
You know, we wanted to address this head on. We built the courseware really specifically covering this middle orange section on the slide. We know that students come into training with some prerequisite knowledge. They might meet the prerequisites of the course exactly. They might come in like short. They may be farther ahead. We built the content to map to the objective domain that takes them from day 1 to day 5. And some of them will have trouble at the beginning of day 1. Some of them will meet day 1 really easily. We've built content that'll help the trainers kind of level set the classroom on day 1. And then at the end of day 5, I just wanted to note here on the slide that it isn't our expectation that students will be able to go from day 5 straight into an exam and pass. We really do build the exams and the questions on the exams with scenario-based questions that I think really require that the student is going to have some real-world experience before they are going to be able to go in and pass the exam. That's part of the exam integrity, the certification integrity that we talk to, right? It's not just book smarts, it's real-world experience smarts.
Okay, so and that seems to make sense, obviously. It'd be contradictory if you just walk in a class and come out and that's your final exam at the end and you're certified. So we want to know that they can do the job. What is just to clarify, what is the objective domain?
So the objective domain, we'll talk about how we built it in a slide or two. The objective domain covers the core tasks that are shared between, it's the core tasks that are used to be the fundamental design principles for the courses and the exams. You can go up to microsoft.com/learning and have a look at the exam prep information, and those tasks that are detailed for what is covered on the exam is essentially the objective domain. And we built those using a whole bunch of customer analysis that we'll talk about in a second. And then when they were done, we made them public. The exam team went off on their way and built the exam questions with no sharing of any sort to the courseware team. And the courseware team took those public objectives and went on to build the content that's in the courseware.
So, good. Sounds like really the framework of everything is moving into that objective domain. Okay.
So here is the slide on the planning process. So we actually spent a lot of time talking to customers across all different segments to figure out what they really do with SQL Server, right? We started with an audience analysis among real customers to figure out what their roles are. We sliced and diced the roles till we found something that we thought met a consistent, accurate view of what people really do with the product. And then for each of those audiences, we went deep into what they did at a task level to make sure that we had an objective domain that represented the actual things people do in those roles. So we talked to almost 120 customers with respect to the skills that they do in a given role. We did a blueprint survey when we thought we had the right set of skills for each role. We got almost 320 customers to validate that and help us prioritize and weight the tasks. That blueprint survey became the objective domain. We also talked with partners as part of the audience analysis to make sure that we were really getting the roles exactly right, so that we had a real world set of certifications to offer.
So Pete, how does this compare, and maybe in processes ballpark, of how we've done it in the past?
So I think in the past, specifically if you look at the history of the SQL Server portfolio, we focused a lot more on the features of the product, and the 2008 portfolio was more aligned with sort of the segments of features that were built. And we respected the audience, but I don't think we did as much work as we have in this portfolio as we have in the past.
Okay, so I think sounds like we put a lot of work into the objective domain here and ensuring that we got the right one by talking to more and more people as well, right? So about what they really do, and that's that extra real world piece.
And then the other big difference is we changed a bunch of development and design process in Microsoft Learning so that the objective domains were locked before any of us started building content of any sort, so that we'd all be building to the same objective domain.
Fantastic.
So, and then the other thing on the slide that I'll call out is we absolutely respected the SQL Server team. They had a bunch of personas that they used when they started design well before when Microsoft Learning started. That was sort of the beginning of our audience analysis. And in some cases, we validated the personas that they were using, and in some cases, we tweaked them a little bit. And then also, naturally, with any portfolio, there's some things that are strategic to the product that the people who are working in the field may not know about, new feature type content that made it into the objective domain as well.
So when you say personas, you mean such as the PEMCO Northwest profile?
That's right, the PEMCO Northwest persona, but the metaphors that we used for SQL Server.
Okay, so these are kind of, Mary Jo is a DBA, she's got X amount of years of experience. Right. These are some of her daily tasks and pain points that the product's trying to work on. Okay.
So sort of in chronology, and we'll just wrap up on this slide, we started with the personas. We talked to partners to make sure that we understood who they represented in terms of audience. The partner network has a bunch of different roles that they speak to. We validated that across all of the customers that we talked to with focus groups and with surveys. And then we mixed in a little bit of the sort of new sparkly bits of SQL Server 2012 that represent sort of the strategic direction forward.
Wow, sounds pretty thorough, and it sounds like, yeah, we put the work into place there around that framework or the objective domain to make sure that that's the starting point, as you said, that nobody started until we got that locked.
That's right.
So looks like we identified a few people that we went after here. Huh? These are related to sort of the personas and the groups of types of people in the jobs that we talked to, right?
That's right. We talked to a whole bunch of different people, and we basically distilled it down into these three groups. We think there's a group of candidates that have core skills, and this is really everybody. We think that there are a bunch of skills across the objective domains that everyone who's certified in SQL Server 2012 is going to need to be so well versed in, and then after that, it sort of slices pretty nicely into a role that we're referring to as database professionals, and another role we're calling BI professionals. And this is a little bit of a diversion from the past, where we're not calling out specifically database administrators and database developers. Those two roles from the past are really combined in this portfolio as database professional, and we've seen research that's been really gratifying since the very beginning of our analysis that shows the evolution of these two roles really combining, both from a perspective of administrators, classic administrators that are going to need to be more well-versed in some of the programming type functions, and together with people who are in classic database developer type roles that through the advent of things like SQL Azure and some of the maybe less administration-heavy features that we've got that are going to need to pick up some of that administration stuff. So there's this really blending of the roles in the database professional that we're targeting in SQL Server 2012 that I think represents the biggest diversion from what we've done in the past.
So can I clarify here for a second?
Sure.
Just to make sure I got it. I'm a little slow. I've got BI professionals, get it, right? And I know we talk to lots of people, and there's people who are being paid. That's why they're professionals in that space, and they kind of identify. We got the database professionals who are also, coming out of a job and telling us what's important to them, their hiring decisions, everything else. That these are important skills that we used. So to bring that down to earth a little bit with the core skills, what would be an example that the BI professional and the database professional, they both need to know? Is that what we're trying to talk about here?
That's exactly what we're trying to talk about. And you'll see in a couple slides as we look at the way we've laid out the exams for these two paths. The biggest one is, for the first time ever, we're going to be examining at a core level the specifics around T-SQL programming. We think it's a core skill that everybody needs to know, and we've never examined on it before. We've had some training on it before, but it's really a fundamental thing, and it's represented really well across both paths.